my mentor, and I think I'm here thanks to this guy, and I spent 2 years with him learning, so I'd like to, send him a special thanks. The growers I've had the opportunity to learn with and from, and that is something that I've always wanted to highlight when I'm out. So we're nothing with you guys, and I know you could still be growing cane or whatever you're growing if we weren't here. But the relationship that we can establish, the more we can make it like a two-way avenue in which, I question you, you question me, and we both learn together. I think it's a beautiful pathway for both of us to improve. So thank you to all these guys and all of you guys who are here today. Industry in general for its support. As Gilly mentioned before, I just became a citizen. I come from Colombia. Well, this is a story I might be able to tell you guys some other day because I don't want to make you cry. But, it's been 4 years and a half in Mackay. Beautiful sort of stage in my life, and I do thank industry for how supportive they all have been and how they actually embraced me. And last but not least, Julia, as I said, for trusting me with this. Gilly, who came in to replace Julia, and she's been amazing. Clara, for always having that smiley face at the back. And of course, Ken and Mary. I miss some people in there, if I could put them all in there, we'll be spending too much time in there. So anyway, if I missed anyone, I think you know who you are. Couple sitting around, so anyway. Right, so when you mentioned the word balancing to me, that's the first thing I think about, like a balancing scale with two plates in which I'm gonna try and balance, I don't know, whether it is the positives and the negatives, or whether we want rain or not, or if we had too much rain, or we wanted just a little bit, or, balancing two things. And that's just the drawing I put in there as a balancing scale and the view from above. But then, if we think about mineral balancing, this might be actually a more realistic view of what it could be. And we were just catching up before, and I was explaining or just mentioning that the way I see that is like the table, as soon as you put something else or a little bit more in one of those plates, you gotta run to the other end and try and balance it out. But then as soon as you balance that one out, another thing is gonna move, and you just end up running up and down, or not up and down, just around, the balancing plates, trying to keep everything in a nice balance. Now, this is the way I see it, and I promise you guys, I'm not high. I don't do drugs despite of my Colombian background or anything like that. But I actually think this is the way it is. It's a completely different universe that it's underneath that we somehow, in my humble opinion, don't understand fully. And we were also talking about that stuff, and it was great to hear from you, Mike. I'm sorry, I apologize, I don't remember your name, but the way this guy was talking about the way he's been doing things at his place and understanding, the little stars that are part of that galaxy made me really happy. And I said, look, we might not understand, not even me. I don't have all the answers. We were talking before with another of you guys who asked me, you know all about weeds? And I said, no, but I'm keen and I want to learn and I want to get the conversation started. So the more we try and understand those little things that actually make part of that big galaxy, the better, and we get the conversation going, and hopefully we'll get to a point in which, we can all enjoy and hopefully maybe see it that way. But anyway, so one of the main reasons I see it like that is especially because of all the branches that come off the mineral balancing. And when I mean branches, I try to actually make some branches of a tree and try and show you guys why I see it so big and like global. Because from actually the ability to keep the mineral balance in our soils depends our ability, for example, to grow nutrient-dense food. Depends our food security, our rural economies. If we grow nutrient-dense food, well, therefore, our nutrition as human beings, as I think Gwyn highlighted it before, healthy soil, plant, animal, human, our livelihoods as rural communities and economies, and, well, our human health actually or directly related to our nutrition. So we start seeing all those feedback loops in the that can actually make that tree way bigger and way more complicated, if we want to call it like that. So I wanted to ask you guys, for this, we're going to focus on soils, of course, because the name is, right, the Healthy Soils Symposium. What do you guys think is the current status of our soils? Would they reflect more the image on the right or the image on the left? And that is just a generalization. And just for the record, I hate generalizations and stereotypes, but I think our soils could be looking a little bit more like the image on the right. At least from what I've seen in Cane, we've experienced a lot of compaction, nowhere near this way in which, look, if we could use a magnifying lens, we could identify so many microbes and living roots and all the stuff that Gwyn was mentioning before. So why are we there? Or why have we got to that stage at which, you know, we could think that our soils are in such a state? Well, we have some background issues, and this is, in my opinion, again, some of the issues I think have taken us to be there. Could be maybe the way our farming systems are, and maybe how resilient our crops are. If we get too much rain, we still get a good crop of cane. If it's dry, we still get a good crop of cane. And that's a good crop. An ever-growing population. We've been just, you know, growing and growing and growing to actually feed the planet. The angst for immediate retribution or satisfaction. We want to grow, we want to sell it. Have we actually stopped at some point to think about the soil and understand what the process of maybe, you know, contributing to its health? It's going to take time. It's a process, and processes are all about time. It might not take 5-10 years like Gwyn was saying before, but it takes time. And we seem to be happy with our Band-Aid solutions. We have an issue, we have a weed pop up, we go and spray it. Have we actually taken the time to actually understand what's happening actually in the soil and why that weed is actually popping up? And maybe another one is the lack of our holistic management approaches. I think when I refer to that one, there is like a feedback loop in there with the silo thinking. We've been isolating things. We've been studying the soils or studying biology or studying nutrition, but we've sort of missed the links between all of them. So I went to uni and let's say I studied soil science. At what point am I going to start linking what I learned at uni about soil science with, you know, the next or the other things that are also part of the bigger picture? But anyway, we're going to focus on this beautiful resource that we have here. And we Colombians are known to be romantic, so I added the little heart in there. Couldn't help it when I saw the shape in those hands. Those are not my hands, by the way. But anyway, we're going to talk about this guy. And I was talking to Mark yesterday when we were taking some samples up on Ken and Mary's for the field day tomorrow. And I said, hey, I hate when people call it dirt. It's not dirt. It's a beautiful resource. And on it depends everything. Everything depends on our soil. So we're going to be talking about this beautiful boy or girl. No stereotypes here. And some of the things we need to understand in order for the soil to be healthier and more productive. So focusing on that guy or that girl's soil, I start seeing important things in the space of mineral balancing that are important, such as the pH, the organic matter, some of the key ratios, understanding that knowledge is power, and the better we understand those things, the better decisions we can actually make. Some of the elemental interrelationships, understanding that, you know, sometimes if I ask you, have you got a coffee? Is it sweet enough? What is harder, to make it sweeter or to actually extract some sugar from that coffee? And what I'm trying to say in there is it's actually easier to work up or to try and fix a deficiency than actually work down from a toxicity. Some of the laws, the minimum and the maximum, and some minerals and their functions. So when we start, I wanted to actually, start creating the feedback loops into that little diagram there, but I didn't want to make it too complicated, and that slide would have become that galaxy, and then you would have thought that I was high. So I just left it like that. And look, I added that one in there because I think despite of understanding everything and all the interrelationships and feedback loops that may exist within those different areas that I have highlighted in there, everything needs to be complemented by regular soil and leaf testing and our management practices. So we might have a beautiful soil that we understand all these principles and we've got it balanced, but then if we go and till it till the end, microbes are just gonna pack up and go home, and then we have to restart the cycle again. So just understanding the picture and getting it right. So starting with organic matter, and those are just some of the things. Hey, this is not everything. I might have missed some of the other things that are also part of like the whole soil and the mineral balancing thing, but I just wanted to highlight the main ones for me. So why is it important, organic matter, or what functions does it have? It improves water infiltration. It improves the soil's ability to hold nutrients, enhances the water holding capacity, and it's an important driver of biological diversity. Something to keep in mind, can affect pH. pH, so must not dictate our calcium needs up in there. A salt might be alkaline due to high magnesium levels. And I have to go back to Mr. Gwyn and thank him so much for enlightening me with some of his, like some of the writing pieces that he's put together, and actually helping me realize that some issues like this might be happening out there that we didn't know of. So pH plays a pivotal role in the nodulation, for example, of plants, for example, soybeans, which seem to be a pretty, like it's taking a lot of force within the sugar industry in rotation with cane, and also because it is a good cash crop. Addition of lime to correct the low pH is possible, while also providing calcium and reducing the potential of aluminum toxicities. Can affect the CEC, and when CEC is affected, nutrient deficiency symptoms can start to appear. That's one of the loop or the feedback loops that we start seeing in there. So we tweak the pH, then we gotta run and keep an eye on our CEC. Most nutrients are readily available in neutral soils. As soil pH decreases, nutrients such as calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus become increasingly unavailable. Others such as aluminum and manganese become toxic, and nodulation is poorer, referring back to soybeans. That's just an example. Something to keep in mind to understand when that feedback loop happens and we start noticing symptoms, it's also important to understand where those symptoms are likely to be depending on what kind of nutrient we're lacking. So we have nutrients that are mobile and immobile, and we've got some examples in there. So for mobile nutrients, they can be transferred from older tissues to younger tissues within the plant, and the symptoms can be actually or first noticed on lower oldest leaves. And immobile nutrients can be actually, if we are having any lack of these nutrients or deficiency actually symptoms can occur, or we can actually notice them up on the youngest leaves. Something just to keep in mind out there. Now, minerals and their functions. I just added a few of the minerals in there. Again, if I had added all of them, that would have been a massive slide, and we would spend here hours talking about all the minerals and their functions. One very important thing that I want you guys to keep an eye on and understand, as I know most of you do already, is that, it's never only about nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. it takes almost 16 elements to grow a plant or a crop. So if we start looking at individual minerals and their functions, we have, for example, calcium being directly impacting the uptake of 7 different minerals and being key for the cell strength. Magnesium, for the chlorophyll formation, we all understand what the chlorophyll is used for, photosynthesis. Potassium, stem strength, sizing up of grain and fruit, stomata opening, and therefore breeding. Boron, it's a calcium synergist, and it helps with the production of glucose and the translocation of glucose from the roots through the plant. Silicon, nutrient movements through the plant and the strength of the cell wall. Sulfur, protein formation. Copper, stem strength and photosynthetic capacity of the plant. Zinc, leaf size. So we start understanding all these minerals and how key they are for us to actually grow a plant or a crop. One very important thing to understand is the law of the minimum. We can have one of these minerals in there being the actual limitation to the growth of our plant, of our crop. We may have all the other things. We may have water, we may have all the macronutrients and most of the micronutrients, but if we are lacking, let's say, zinc can be actually the limiting factor for that barrel to actually get filled all the way to the top. It'll be leaking from there, and we can have whatever we want in excess, and that's something that we're just going to talk about after this law of the minimum. That's when things start becoming toxic. But that law is key, that we understand that if we only focus on nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, or sulfur, like on a soil test report that we can get quite easily, we might have one of the micronutrients in there that might be the limiting factor. And in fact, if you have a look at that, most of them are actually micronutrients. And how often have we actually stopped to think about how important those micronutrients are? Are we keeping an eye on them? The law of the maximum, the way I see it is acknowledging that the total growth of a crop or a plant depends on many factors, such as nutrients, the nutrient interaction, the soil physico-chemical characteristics, the biology, the weather, and the management practices, for example. Without the correction of the limiting growth factors, resources are not going to be used fully to its full capacity or their full capacity. So we move from the desired level of nutrient supply, which is providing optimum conditions for that crop to actually grow, to a luxury level, and those not fully utilized resources can then become toxic. As I mentioned before, it's easier to work up from a deficiency than down from a toxicity. Keep that in mind. And then some elemental interrelationships, keeping in mind that weather and soil type are also going to affect how elements actually interrelate with each other. So we have some synergies and antagonisms. Some examples, for example, lime to correct pH increases molybdenum availability. Molybdenum is key, for example, in soils to actually nodulate and actually the fixation process. Grab nitrogen from the atmosphere and actually feed from it. Calcium to correct pH increases phosphorus uptake, and calcium to correct pH increases selenium availability. Some antagonisms, an increase of molybdenum induces boron deficiency. So then we have there another feedback loop between those two elements, and then we go back to that second image where I showed you that big scale, balancing scale, where we move something in here, we just gotta run to the other end and keep balancing things. A rapid rise in sulfur had major impacts on selenium uptake, and calcium to correct pH decreases iron availability. This one in here, knowledge and its power, just understanding the principles, or the overarching principles or the basis makes a huge difference. You can be that guy on the right there. Once you get handed, your soil test report, you look at it and you go, all right, yeah, right, well, I need to apply more fertilizer. Fertilizer is going through the roof, and you just go like that guy. Or you can be like this guy if you actually understand those interrelationships and everything makes sense. And you can have a challenging conversation with your agronomist and question him. I like when you guys question me. Not because of the sake of questioning, because I know a couple of you guys out there have questioned me just for the sake of questioning. But when you understand and you go on question, it's that two-way avenue that I was talking about when I started the chat. It helps you guys learn. It helps me go and say, honestly to your face, Mike, I have no clue, but it gives me motivation to go and find out and get back to you, and then we learn together. I think that's, I don't know, that is paramount for me. Then we have some key ratios as well that we need to understand. More feedback loops in there between elements, for example, and what they actually impact. So we have the calcium-magnesium ratio. I guess most of you would have heard about that one, affecting soil structure, 5.5 to 1. Yet, if we have a heavy clay or a heavy soil, 7 to 1, or in a sandy soil, 3 to 1. Magnesium to potassium, 1 to 1, equal parts. Ensure that we get good uptake of both plus P, and it's actually key for photosynthesis. Iron and manganese, 2 to 1. Plant resilience, being able to cope with extreme weather events, for example, droughts, floods. Potassium and sodium, 4 to 1. Key for the photosynthesis, the breeding of the plant, the stem strength and the grain field. Phosphorus and zinc, 10 to 1. Photosynthesis, energy, disease and insect resistance, growth hormone production, and the leaf size. Phosphorus and sulfur, 1 to 1, equal parts, good uptake of both. Photosynthesis, again, translocation of water and nutrients, movement up and down the plant of these very essential nutrients and actually water. So as our friend Ray, who I was expecting to see here, surprisingly he's not, that's a friend in common that we have. Very smart guy out there that always has, you know, the most challenges, talks with me and challenges me and questions everything, not because just of the sake of questioning, but because he understands many things very well. I just wanted to leave you with that. Look, regular soil and leaf testing plus our management practices are actually going to complement the understanding of all those key ratios, elemental interrelationships, and all the things that we just went through. As I mentioned before, if we have our soil in a, let's say, good chemical or in a balanced chemical and physical state, then we go with our management practice and we till the crap out of that soil. We have to go back and start again. And then this morning I actually added some photos, so thank you, Gilly, for allowing me to do that. Last night I couldn't sleep, and I went on social media and I found this guy on Twitter who said, quoted that from Leonardo da Vinci in the 1500s. We know more about the movement of celestial bodies than about the soil underfoot. I wanted to share that with you guys. Another one from 7 News Mackay. Agricultural experts are warning Australia could face serious food shortages by 2050 if action isn't taken to improve soil quality. Apparently someone is making one of these magic products that's going to fix the issue. But anyway, I stay within the first sentence. And then another one I found, healthy soil is key to feeding 9 billion people by 2050. Another big challenge we have out there. But look, I know it's not easy. I don't have all the answers. Maybe no one in here has all the answers. But getting the conversation going and getting, you know, an opportunity like this one to be here, it's key. Not only for the sugar industry that I work in, but for all of us to start the conversation. To you guys, whoever of you are growers, and whatever the crop you grow, or if you've got cattle or whatever, understanding all that is actually key to, you know, start that steps integrated approach to actually get there in a sustainable way, wanting to, or being actually able to preserve our soils and give back to them. It's a big challenge, but I don't know, I think we're here, and at least it's very satisfying to see that we are, I don't know, around 60 plus people in here that are keen about understanding this. People like Simon that I know, who's been out there doing a lot of work with some other growers. You know, we get the conversation going, and as long as we are all keen and interested, I think that's the way we can step, you know, climbing that step that Gwyn was referring to. And I don't know, there might be another, you know, feedback loop in there, but anyway, don't get me into galaxy mode, because then I'll go mad, and you know. But anyway, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope I made that easy to understand, easy to flow through, and you go home today with some, you know, good ideas and good take-home messages. But yeah, no, it's a pleasure. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Daniel. Before you go,
Questions?
Anyone got a question or two for Daniel?
There's some new research that's coming out that by changing the biology of the soil it's going to give you more benefits than trying to do your chemical balancing only.
Okay.
So the more stacks of enterprises that you're doing will help than sticking on one system.
Okay. Well, I think, look, I think I need to be politically correct as well. I'd say, and this is just an opinion, research will, you know, come up, not every day, maybe, but we'll always hear about new research coming up and telling us things. But we can't forget that those chemical properties within the soil are going to also provide a safe environment for the biology to survive, to live, and thrive. So I think we can't put one away from the other. Let's get back to the galaxy. Let's get back to the interconnection between them all. But look, yeah, well, it might be peer-reviewed, or I don't know. But there will always be someone coming up with, you know, new research, new ideas, new papers saying this and that. And I'm not saying that's wrong. That's actually good. But at least us here, we need to understand how everything interrelates, and that's just an opinion. I might see the interrelations between everything, but Gilly might just say during the break later on, hey, Dan, I disagree with that. You know, I don't see the interconnection. And that's fine. But, you know, thanks for, you know, mentioning that. I do think that those chemical properties within the soil are going to actually provide a safe environment for biology to thrive and actually help us. And we actually saw it yesterday at Ken and Mary's when we were sampling with Mark and Dan. We'll talk about that tomorrow, but it was amazing when we grabbed one of those samples and Ken told us, like, before I didn't have any of that topsoil. So he's been able to grow that topsoil, and he's been spraying his biology and all that. But then in the subsoil we found actually yesterday some constraints that might be actually having an impact on what's happening in the surface, or on the surface with whatever we want to do in there, or actually within the biology. So it is interesting to see that you, by keeping an eye on your biology, yes, you can grow your topsoil and all that, but let's not forget that, you know, that topsoil is going to be interrelated with your subsoil, and whatever happens down there is going to have an impact on your topsoil. And it's just a system, an entire system. And I guess that's what I want to leave you guys with. Any other questions or comments?
You're so quiet.